I have in a studio the MPP Ashanti Region Secretary, Sampine. Good morning to you, Sampine.
Morning, Rolly.
It's great to have you. And then also the Member of Parliament for Myong, and Mohammed Abdulaziz is our next guest. And thanks for joining me, Mohammed.
Good morning, bro.
I hope you're fine.
I'm good.
A lot of good things are happening around. I hope you know that just by next week, we're going to have new students of first year of senior high schools enjoying free senior high school. I know you want to make a comment on that.
Oh, yeah, it's a limping project.
It's a limping project. It's coming to fruition next week.
And let's see what happens next week.
Right.
Yeah, it's a limping project. Dead on arrival.
It's dead on arrival. But Sampine, it's an initiative that has been lauded by parents and guardians, especially many from all walks of life in our country. Those who have their children, especially going to the first year, are extremely happy about it.
Yeah, see, let the NDC live in their cocoon's nest when it's warm and they think it's warm also outside. Now, they look at all these with pessimism, but I'm very optimistic that we're going to do what the president has reiterated it over and over, and that is going to be, people are happy we are going to have this. But I believe they possibly think all students who are entering senior high school should die so that there wouldn't be any free SHS, and that's the thinking of the NDC. But it's so unpatriotic that when you go to other nations, where the resources of the nations are used to look at the education of their citizens. In Ghana, when we have had the nursing scholarship, we have had other schemes that deal with giving scholarship to people, and we want to extend it to all Ghanaian children of SSS going age and qualified. And beginning this academic year, you have the NDC telling us it's dead on arrival. Next week is just some few days up, and they're going to see the surprises.
You're an educationist, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you teach. So at the end of the day, when headmasters at a conference say they don't know back in their schools whether their accounts have been credited with the initial sum of some 20% of the bursaries that would have been used for the upkeep of the students, it should get would-be parents who would have their parents enjoying this bursary or this policy worried.
Of course, definitely. These schools, most of these schools, or almost all the schools have been working on credit facilities to purchase food and other things for the upkeep of the students before they pay school fees. Definitely, no student will pay fees when they are at home. So when we reopen, they pay the fees. But before they get in, schools make arrangements for purchases so that the first week they are able to cater for the boarding students especially. Government says that, yes, we are going to give you the funding. We have some 10 days up to the time. Yesterday, the deputy minister was speaking. 2 days ago, the minister also spoke on these matters, and I believe that, yes, definitely something is going to hit the accounts. We cannot let it go just off like that. Two, if even they are giving the money, they look at certain things. How many students are they going to use the money for? Because if you go to Anglican Senior High School, where I teach, for instance, we don't even know the number of students who are going to start the free senior high schools. So how are they going to compute the amount and give it bulk as people are suggesting? But if they give them the 20%, it could be just a paltry sum of what's going to be used for the term. And I know that, yes, this government is committed. Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president, is a very serious president. Very serious president. He's not looking at it as a joke. It's a flagship thing that he feels should be for the benefit of every Ghanaian child from 2017-2018 academic year. So definitely, I know we're going to do it. Let's wait. We have 10 days or so for schools to reopen, and I believe that, yes, by the close of the week, we'll be hearing something good. Because as they spoke yesterday, they had not received the amounts, but as of today, tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen.
They should be getting some light at the end of the tunnel.
Going to get some, yes.
Mohammed, why would, especially your side of the political divide, and even critics of government on this policy, be expressing these misgivings for a policy that people are looking forward to, especially guardians of students who will be entering into first-year senior high schools, and for a policy that has not even been started yet?
Thank you, and good morning to our viewers. Let us have it on record that as a party and as a caucus in Parliament, we are not against any policy that would make education accessible and affordable to the Ghanaian public. What we have sought to do right from day one is to raise the very pertinent questions, very cogent questions, and government has been very, very evasive in answering those questions. The position of the NDC, and for that matter, the minority caucus right from day one, has been to make access available before anything that has to do with free senior high school. And so we advocated our position very clearly prior to the 2016 general elections. And that was why we started with some e-schools constructions. And one would have thought that the MPP would have been interested in completing them. You see, I was with one MPP person on another platform somewhere, and what he indicated was there was a report from Eastern Region, a town called Asasiwa or something, I'm not too sure about it. Exactly. About the unavailability of classroom facilities, unavailability of school facilities. And so what that person suggested was that at least for now, we could adapt churches for purposes of delivering lectures for seniors high schools. And I thought that was very, very unfortunate that in this time and age, we are looking at...
The person was making a public statement? Exactly.
And so I got worried. You know, when you are implementing a policy like free senior high school, you should be mindful of the fact that lectures would not be delivered on trees. That would definitely be in classrooms. And so our position has been very, very clear and very, very consistent. Now, the NPP has constantly maintained their position of free senior high school. They made some political capital out of it. Nanado and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on several political platforms pledged to implement a full-scale senior high school, a free senior high school, when voted into power. In fact, this is the manifesto of the MPP, signed by no other person than Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is today the President of the Republic. And go to page 104 of the manifesto of the MPP. And what they promised was not to do a progressive introduction of free senior high school. This is the manifesto of the MPP, signed by Nana Akufo-Addo. Page 104, your own manifesto. Free education for all Ghanaian children up to senior high school. Free for all. The emphasis here is all. And so right from
But that's in the Constitution. It's just a lift from the Constitution.
No. The Constitution talks about progressive introduction of free senior high school. That's what the Constitution talks about. I have the 1992 Constitution here. It talks about progressively introducing free senior high school. And so right from 2014, under President Mahama, we had a policy of a scholarship for brilliant but needy students. As much as over 10,000 students were benefiting from that project. You insisted on free for all senior high education, and we have always warned you. Today we are just left with some 4 or 5 days for schools to reopen. We are not even sure how much money you would remit to the schools. You have not even disbursed 1 cedi. Schools would be required to expend money on the very first day of school. You don't even know. In fact, what you are even attempting to implement today is not what you promised the Ghanaian public. Somebody may have voted for the Nanado and the MPP simply because perhaps he had his or her word in Form 2 or Form 3 and was thinking that once the man becomes the president, he or she wouldn't pay.
But that has been clarified, hasn't been clarified. Hasn't it been clarified?
How has that been?
It has been clarified that the policy per the start of the implementation will be implemented in such a way that by the end of the 3rd year of the term of the Akufo-Addo-led government, everybody in senior high school would have been captured.
I'm not getting the drift of my argument.
I get your
drift. That what they pledged? Was that what they pledged to the Ghanaian public? You don't promise to do A, and when you are voted into power, then you tend to do B.
What do you think in your mindset is what they promised the Ghanaian, they promised the Ghanaian people?
Was to implement free senior high school for all secondary school students as captured in their own manifesto.
So your expectation is that everybody in secondary school should be.
Exactly, but now they have taken a policy position to start with only first years. First of all, they must admit that what they are attempting to implement today is not what they pledged to do, and that they deceived the Ghanaian public. That must be on record. Even with the first year students that they are trying to implement. Why? School will open just next week. They have not even released 1 cedi to the schools. In the 2017 budget, an amount of 400 million Ghana cedis was earmarked for the implementation of the free senior high school. This is a policy that you have talked about since 2008 and should have known exactly what we are about to do. We have constantly asked the question, and they have never answered. That is the 400 million Ghana cedis just meant for the first term, because the budget in which the 400 million Ghana cedis was captured would expire on the 31st of December. Let us know from you, either from the Minister of Finance or the Education Minister.
What do you think?
The 400, I don't know, I'm not in government.
But you approved the budget for the financial year.
Exactly. And so when you
the
say
financial
that
year
ends on 31st of December.
And the term for the first term ends when?
In December. And so nothing about the current budget will be applicable on 1st of January 2018.
Are expenditures not made in one financial statement or budget that would transcend into the next fiscal period?
No.
You mean nowhere whether
once
corporate or the public
budget,
sector?
Once you do a budget for 2017, it runs from January 1st to 31st of December. In the 2017 budget, you allocated an amount of 400 million Ghana school. 400
you don't get my drift
on
my question. I'm saying that don't you make expenditures that will overlap the period of the budget? Because you could make procurement,
yes,
for which the consumption of the items that are on the list of the purchase could transcend the period of the budgetary expenditure.
So
do you get my my point?
I get it. I
okay.
get it.
So you could be buying this shirt.
No, I get you right.
No, Mohammed, please listen to me. You could have sewn this your nicely well crafted and attired designed clothing you have right now, but you would have been wearing it for the next 2 years, even though the budget you're prepared to buy this was for this particular month. Yeah. And I'm saying that is it untoward or perhaps unseen in the financial system to have an allocation that would, for which the consumption or the expenditure would transcend the budgetary period?
I get you right, Roland.
So you get me.
I get you right.
So it's possible the 400 and the usage of the 400 could transcend, could be beyond December. Is it possible?
We are asking for clarity that if you say you have earmarked 400 million Ghana cedis for free senior high school for 2017-2018 academic year, the budget ends on 31st of 2017. All that we are asking is for clarity. If in 2018 you are going to make another budgetary allocation,
what do you think?
I am not in government. That's why we are asking the questions, and they have not answered those questions up to now. Those are some of the questions that they haven't answered up to now. They are also promising to do a one hot meal for every student, alongside the implementation of the free senior high school. I'm aware that there is no any day school in this country that has any facility for either cooking or serving meals for students. What plans have been?
As in dining halls?
As in dining halls and kitchen facilities and cookeries. I'm saying that there are a lot of questions that they need to answer. Just don't tell us that because we have promised senior high school, we should just cross our legs and wait for 11th of September. And when you fail, we would have nothing to do. We are not just dealing with MPP students. We are dealing with the entire country.
But that's an unfair comment, I think.
No, you see, when you are dealing with a private company or people you are still with, you can decide to say, oh, and this is stay off. This is just a matter for MPP.
Okay.
But we have our kids.
Mohammed.
It's a national issue.
All right.
We have every
I just really wanted to ask the question.
We have every right to ask these questions. And when we ask those questions, government should come with answers and don't say we don't mean well for the project, we are doommongers. No. Answer the very basic question that we are asking of you. Your finance minister and your education minister should answer those questions.
Those are critical questions. I guess the skeptics and the critics would always be seeking answers to some pertinent questions.
No, but Rolly, we don't consider propaganda-driven questions as critical.
But he's raising critical questions.
Of course, they're propaganda-driven.
For example, if you're promising feeding for day schools.
Let me come there. It's pure propaganda-driven questions. Yes, we started the free meals for students in basic schools. How was it operated? Okay, you have caterers coming from places, serving and leaving them. It could be even packed lunch for these students.
Is that what it's going to be?
I said it could be. packed lunch for these students.
You don't know.
Most of these schools.
You don't know what is going to be.
Most, apart from the few day schools that we have across the country, just a few. Almost all the senior high schools that we have boarding facilities. They have kind of canteens or dining halls for the students that all the day students can also share. They can look at appropriate arrangements, and which I know most of the schools are putting in place plans to have it. Now, he was talking about the school fees that have been earmarked for 400 million for the program.
Just a little in excess of 400
million.
Yes.
When the minister met with the press at the Information Ministry Conference Center to deliberate on these matters at the launch of that program, detailed analysis of how we're going to fund it was given, how much each student is going to receive was given, the quantum of food that they are going to take, free meals and the hot meals were all indicated. The amounts or the subjects or the items that were going to be covered under were all indicated. Now, budgets are made for fiscal years. The first term of the 2017-2018 academic year will end in December as much as the budget ends in December. You cannot put the budget for the whole year in the 2017 budget statement. How do you reconcile that to the 2018 budget statement? And I'm surprised Aziz is talking about it in this manner. Because definitely when you put out the budget for 2018, they're going to capture how to feed the students and take care of the students when it gets to the 2018 academic year, where you have 2 terms. That is the second and the third term, and the 2018-2019 academic year also starting. So why don't we wait for us to roll out this system? Then he talks about the Asatiwa example. If the students are paying fees and they don't have facilities, how does that affect free education? Is it because we talk about making education free, that's why you're looking at that, they don't have facilities?
But there are questions
important.
About if you're making it free, it means the enrollment would also increase.
It's not
possible.
Allocations
are allocations. Schools are just taking what they can take.
It's not so. You have schools giving the quota, or don't let me use quota, the number of students that they can accommodate in the various schools. Aseswa is an existing school. There are students there who pay fees. If they have facilities or space available for 200 people, it's the 200 that they will declare for the free education. They're not going to declare 400 spaces. So we don't need, that's why I said the propaganda-driven argument is not going to wash. So you're saying
that if last year, Infantipim accommodated or perhaps admitted 400 students and they have room for 400 or 300 or 420 for this year, just like they admitted for a period when some level of fee paying, for the period where there's going to be free schooling in their school, it will still be the same number?
Definitely. People are going to have the opportunity to enter other schools, because when you go to certain places, apart from the elite schools and the Augustins and the rest, where
they are the elite schools.
Oh, definitely. You know that. You should understand.
Yes, I know.
There are other schools that the population is below the expectation of school authorities. I can give you a lot of examples. So it is up to all of us as Ghanaians to make sure that, yes, let's provide facilities for some of these schools so that, yes, they will up their game, where students can also.
The provision of those facilities, are they being done? These are questions that Mohammed and his members in the opposition are asking.
As part of the program of the Ghana Education Service and the ministry, they're putting in place certain things. And no, it's a process. You cannot simply look at it in one day. When the NDC started with their progressive free education and all that, the facilities, they said they were looking at the facility. They started with, what do they call the community day schools, all right? So if you started with community day schools over 8 years, definitely somebody is going to also look at expansion of libraries, expansion of dormitories and all that. So it's not a matter of 3 months using it to finish with these processes. So don't let us go there. The optimism about the whole program is what is premium. The moment you go on the tangent of pessimism, the people look at you, are these people patriotic enough? All right? So don't let us jumble up the whole thing and look at it as if nobody's looking at it. Then 2, they talk about money. Now, second-year students, third-year students are going to be fed. They are not part of this, but they have subsidies. But when do governments release monies for their operation? That is why schools take school fees upon entry, upon reopening, so that students, they will have something to work with. Also, most of these schools have credit facilities with the suppliers of their
so
foodstuffs.
It's just the same.
Definitely, so that when the money is in, they use it in paying. But I believe once the government says, yes, we are going to find about 20% of the amount that you need to give to you before reopening, let's wait for that to happen. Don't let us surprise because it's not gone and we think that,
you think they are putting the cart before the horse?
That's what they are doing. And that's what I said. That's what I said. If you have propaganda-driven,
you are saying they are discussions.
From what they say and from what Aziz is telling me, it's not only Aziz, most of the communicators of the NDC, including their MPs and possibly, I don't know what's going through the mind of the former president, but all of them look at it from the pessimist point of view. And they think that, yes, once it's a flagship thing of the New Patriotic Party and the president, definitely it should be a failure so that they have something to say that, yes, we promised to do this and we're unable to deliver. And that is what makes it so unpatriotic on their behalf or on their part. So please, Aziz and your people, let's all hands should be on board. Once we're able to get some sort of scholarship for others in education to benefit. It is also important. Now he was talking about that he quoted something from our manifesto that we are not giving to everybody. When he was speaking now, he talked about giving monies to needy but brilliant students. There were other students who are also needy. And now you discriminated. They are needy. They could not be brilliant, but they're also in secondary schools. So why would you look at it from that point? When you look at discrimination at that point, and now that we are starting with a year group, you think that is discriminatory enough. I mean, the morals in whatever and the principles that we use in discussions.
That's not fair. You read a line from your manifesto. It says that's free. It's going to be, of course. And
they look at it.
It's not going to be apparently. It's not going to be free for second years and third years.
Look, with education, you start programs.
Who said?
Pardon me.
Who said you start programs progressively?
No, I'm not saying progressively. I'm talking about it with education. Every academic year, every policy begins with an academic year. When this junior high school concept was brought in, those of us who were in middle school were not asked to go to the junior high school.
You mean, yes.
The middle school continued until the junior high school took over after,
that's a very good point
after years. Then,
I love this one.
And then
so that's how come we had Form 5, lower and upper 6,
and also people coming in from the junior high school. So every academic year has its own policy. When we started with the 4-year program for the senior high schools, those in the 3rd year were not competing for 4 years. They never asked to continue to the 4th year. They did the 3 years, and the 4 year also ran. So at the beginning of every academic year, you have a policy going on. And this is when we are starting it. And it's a starting point. By the time that we leave office, in the several years ahead, every Ghanaian child of secondary education age would also go on a benefit. And that's where the import of all what he quoted from the manifesto would be felt. So please, Aziz, take heart, go to the mosque, you do your prayer.
But Mohammed, in the meantime though, we've had, as far as the postings are concerned, some delays in placing some others in excess of some 100,000 in notable schools. And so we've had even parents converging at the Ghana Education Service office, I think in Accra, and I'm sure some notable areas across the country. Is it a worry for you as an MP who is leading your constituents in Parliament?
It's a worry, especially that about only some 60% or so of the qualified students have had postings. Those who have not had their postings now will be worried. I understand they've been asked to log onto some website to do some placement, and the system is terribly slow. So let's hope that they will be able to fix the issue of the website so that parents and pupils can access the website well. But you see, I still get back to what my co-panelist is just talked about. When we ask the critical questions, you don't say our questions are laced with mischief. No. as
It's
an opposition party.
Mischief. I said propaganda. I don't talk
propaganda
about
and mischief. I mean.
Oh, okay. So whatever you do, your propaganda is
saying that our
mischievous.
questions and the very critical ones that we ask are propaganda in nature, and that they are laced with some mischief. We don't want you to succeed. Look, this is from JoyNews, not from NDC headquarters. Government says it is still putting resources together to ensure a smooth takeoff of its flagship free senior high school program. You are still putting resources together. With just 5 days to start, Deputy Education Minister Dr. Ya Ose Edutum has told JoyNews government. Government is working around the clock to ensure
Your
that
point.
food. I'm saying that.
And what's wrong with that?
Oh, you don't see anything wrong with that.
What's wrong with that?
That school is opening just Monday.
Of course.
And government is still putting resources together.
Of course, you put resources, and the resources we put together on daily basis until
when you were speaking, I was very quiet.
Out.
I had a lot of disagreements with you, but I was very quiet.
Okay,
just do same for me.
I hear.
What I'm saying is that there's no any mischief of propaganda at all in what we are saying.
So you're just asking genuine questions.
We're asking very, very critical questions. This was a manifesto signed by Nana Akufo-Addo, not President John Dramani Mahama, not Haruna Idrissa, our leader in parliament, but Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the then flag bearer of the NPP and now President of the Republic. And that you, in this manifesto, you promise to offer free senior high school for all, the emphasis being for all. What we are doing now is not what you pledge. That one you must be humble enough to admit that you promised to do free senior high school for all. And now you are just doing for just first years. That is not what you pledge. That one you must be humble enough to admit. We are also asking very critical questions of implementation. Charles is complaining, and Charles is not NDC. You are a teacher. You have just told me you are a teacher in a secondary school. Charles is complaining that you have not even sent them one CD, the red one, 1 penny, to start the implementation of the free senior high school. What resources do you expect them to use on the very first day of school? And when we ask these questions, you want to put it in a partisan manner? No, we are dealing with the future leaders of this country. You must be candid enough. You must be candid enough. I have nothing against that policy, and no one in
Mohammed,
NDC
are you saying
has
that,
anything
are you
against
saying
that policy.
that the status quo in which the various secondary schools, and indeed many of the higher educational institutions, have been dealing with their suppliers in getting stock of items before allocations come into the account, is not an arrangement that could also be done for this free SHS policy?
You see,
no, I'm asking, just don't
I get you right.
Just ask me a question. Is it not possible?
It's not possible.
Why is it not possible?
Oh, you are a panelist just like me.
Okay.
So let him do the questioning.
Okay.
You see, you are a party officer, so I can forgive you. If you are to be a government official, that the MPP is now asking schools to go on some credit spree.
No, something.
Roland.
Something that is the usual.
Roland. If schools go,
for example, last 2 years, we were told allocations even for the year. A half year had not even gone to the secondary school. Some of the secondary schools had even had to close.
Even for schools.
But this one, government has given you the assurance.
Roland, even for schools in northern sector of Ghana, where we had this scholarship program, you are aware that on several occasions, schools had to postpone reopening because resources were not available, not just under MPP, even under the NDC. What it means, therefore, is that there are some critical services that if you don't have, you can't reopen school.
Like?
If you go around crediting food to feed students, now you are being asked to go and credit even chalk.
Okay.
Even chalk.
I get you.
That is not possible. That government is telling schools to go out and credit everything.
Mohammed,
for free senior high school.
We have to move on.
And
What response do you have to that?
Roland, just 1 minute.
No, Mohammed, I beg you. You have more than enough. I'm sure you have other platforms. So how do you respond to this?
Government never said so. I'm telling him that that's the practice in every senior high school in Ghana. No, students are we are going to reopen between the 12th, the 14th. When they get on campus, they will eat. Okay? Definitely, schools will prepare. They have arrangements with these suppliers that they do on credit basis. Governments.
So you're saying it's not usual? It's not unusual.
It is unusual.
It's not unusual. It is not unusual.
Yeah.
Free senior high school now try to credit.
So look, that's not fair comment. Because
that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
No, you were looking at it that when they get to school,
everything, including chalk.
We
have the government official.
Even in the policy.
Please, let's put things into perspective before this one gets out of hand. We have a government official that says that they will be given the resources, 20% of the
He says they are now putting resources together.
But even if it doesn't arrive, there are still modalities by which these institutions work with their suppliers.
We don't need to be here at all.
No, let me tell you.
We don't need to be here.
Let me tell you.
We don't need to be here at all.
From practicality of what
he's not an educator, so he doesn't.
No, I am.
He only went through school.
He was quoting.
He only went through school. That you experienced it.
I have taught for good 8 years. I'm a teacher.
No.
I'm a trained teacher.
Possibly not in the senior high school.
Mohammed.
You see, when he was talking about the northern schools and the scholarships, that for 2 terms, 3 terms, were they not eating? How were they funding that?
Yeah.
It was credit facility from their suppliers. And that is when
but he's afraid
it was a failure because we're using money to pay on some dubious judgment debts and the rest.
Okay, let's not go there. Let's not go there. The minority in parliament has accused the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, of breaching the Procurement Act when he awarded a 10 million Ghana cedi COCOBOD contract to a private businessman. And apparently a press conference was put together by the minority in Parliament. It was addressed by the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu. The said contract, according to Haruna Idrisu, was given to Magdan Shipping Company Limited. It did not, according to a press conference again, pass through the Central Tender Review Committee. So what was the import of the press conference, Mohammed? That the finance minister was overstepping his bounds. You accuse him of conflict of interest situations, and well, let's play that insert from the minority leader at that press conference.
The minority in Parliament has received with some shock another action taken by the Honourable Minister for Finance, Honourable Ken Ofori-Atta, which amounts to a usurpation of the role of the board of directors of a listed company, the Agricultural Development Bank. And we are concerned because what befell UT and Capital Bank, we don't want it visited on the Agricultural Development Bank. We have in our possession a letter dated 9th June 2017, reference PID PEU 01-2017, signed by the Honourable Ofori-Atta, giving approval of a loan of 10,459,500 from the ADB to Magdan Shipping Company Limited. He has reduced the mandate and role of the Minister of Finance to some credit disbursement entity in order that he can reward, as usual, the political cronies.
Mohammed, Decibel.
Nah.
So, what was the minority leader saying? Accusing the finance minister of overstepping his bounds and some conflict of interest situations.
The minority, under the leadership of Honourable Haruna Idrisu, had a press conference yesterday to draw attention to some, for want of a better word, misconduct on the part of the finance minister. From where I sit, he's virtually turning himself to be the Prime Minister of the Republic, when indeed he's just he's a minister in charge of finance. There are some of these things that you would not have some material evidence to substantiate, but there are some circumstantial evidence. We speak to ourselves in Parliament, we speak to our colleagues who are fortunate to be ministers and deputy ministers, and some of them are even much worried than us about the posture and conduct of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. And if there's one person in this country who serves as a threat, not just to the economy of this country, but also to the financial industry of this country, that should be Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. And it's worrying. Let us limit ourselves to this very issue, that we had the opportunity to speak on yesterday, he approved a loan for Magda to the tune of some 10,459,000 Ghana cedis or so. The finance minister is not the MD for ADB. He's not a board member and he's not a board chairman. How on earth would a customer of a bank apply for a loan? The ADB, as we speak, as at the time that this loan was approved, had no board at all. It took the finance minister to approve the loan for Magdan. He had assumed the responsibility and functions of the board, the governing board of ADB. That is very, very wrong. That is very, very wrong. That you, as a finance minister, and even when you look at the letter approving that loan, asking the MD of ADB to release that amount of money to Magdan, they had not even done any due diligence. And even in that letter, he indicated that they should do due diligence. Why would you approve a loan to the tune of over 10 million Ghana cedis when there was no even due diligence? And worst of all, he had assumed the responsibility of management and board of ADB. That is very, very wrong and unusual. In fact, in that letter, he indicated that that loan was to facilitate the business of Magdan, especially that he had been awarded a contract by COCOBOD. Now, the question that also arises out of that is that as at that time that he was approving this loan, there was no governing board at PPA, Public Procurement Authority. Per the
public procurement,
per the amended Public Procurement Law, 2016, Act 914, so I'm not too sure about it. Any contract, any procurement to the tune of 1 million and above needs to be ratified by the Central Tender Review Committee. As at that time, there was no Central Tender Review Committee. So the question that also arises is, who at PPA approved that contract? If it was just a sole source project, I remember Nanado and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in opposition had vowed not to use sole sourcing at all. In fact, they bastardized it and even went ahead to appoint a minister responsible for procurement.
But the law allows for sole sourcing.
You see, something they bastardized just yesterday.
I think they talked about the abuse of sole sourcing.
The abuse is here.
Where?
In this very contract, let's assume that sole sourcing was used. They needed approval of the board of PPA. There was no board at PPA. Assuming they went through competitive tendering process, they needed to go through the Central Tender Review Committee. The finance minister is involved in breach of procurement laws. He is involved in usurping the powers of governing boards and management of ADB, and that is worrying. They should be very quick in putting up the office of the special prosecutor. In fact, that office will be very, very relevant, not just today, even tomorrow. You are aware of UT Bank and Capital Bank. They collapsed hugely because of bad loans. Because of bad loans. And so when, as finance minister, you can usurp the powers of the board of a listed company like ADB, usurp the functions of the management of ADB, a listed company, to grant loans to the tune of over 10 million without any due diligence. Tomorrow, if ADB also collapses, what happens? What's happening to the financial sector in this country? So whilst we are still looking at we are still waiting for answers on how they acquired Ghana Commercial Bank acquired UT and Capital Bank. At what consideration when we are acquiring a bank under such a circumstance, what amount of money did they pay to UT Bank and Capital Bank? We don't know yet, and we are going ahead to grant loans in excess of 10 million as a finance minister, and they didn't see anything wrong with it. That as a minister you have no right, you have no power whatsoever to approve a loan for a private company.
You've made the point.
No.
All right.
No.
They want some critical.
Rolly.
Yes, sir.
What law did the finance minister breach? In the statement by the minority, they were unable to tell us anything. What they ended was that it was cronyism, that they were doing it for friends.
You think that's what they wanted to arrive
That is the import. The next import is that diverting attention from the snake scandal and all that. That is the import of their, of course. That you've been unable to even hold a press conference. You've had about 300 press conferences since the beginning of the year. This snake matter over that. This snake matter that confront Ghanaians, that software deals. You've been unable to comment on it. Right, now let's get to the matter that we are discussing. Now, did the finance minister breach any law? Two, that committee,
the procurement law.
That committee.
I have referred to the procurement law.
Please.
I have referred to the procurement law.
Please, you are not asking the question, and that's what you told me.
Yes.
Yes, so allow Rolly to ask the questions. You see, we can ask questions. You're talking about the board not being in place.
Yes.
Now, can the board ratify decisions after the appointment? Which is absolutely yes.
From which law?
They can also review decisions. That is absolutely yes. Now, the question is, did Magdan qualify for the loan or not? He qualified. The bank approved it. Because there wasn't anybody, they referred to the minister who represents Ghana as the biggest shareholder of ADB. So if they are going to look at these matters without considering all of these things and look at it, they feel Magdan is a friend of the New Patriotic Party and therefore that is what Haruna Iddrisu said.
No, is that true or not?
Okay, but is it what we are looking at?
Is Magdan and MPP?
Are we looking at looking at breaches of the law and all that?
Procurement law.
I mean, we look at it from that angle, and it's so sad that the minority in Parliament that should know what is best for the country will go on that tangent and look at matters from personal views just to make somebody look bad in the eyes of the people.
You think you are just doing equalization?
Possibly. Because we've been talking about source sourcing. And now he mentioned it. The several source sourcing that went on. Now, you see, we don't even want to talk about what they did with certain contracts that they signed. Just in the Finder newspaper. You have a contract that was signed to Mrs. Santa Baron also for some national security operations, about $240 million that even the National Security Board then says it's not aware of the contract. What do they do about it? I mean, they don't have the moral to even talk about some of these things. But I'm not justifying it. But what I'm looking is that if there's any breach, and they were unable to tell us about any breach of the law on the part of the minister at all. In the statement that Haruna Iddrisu read, in all the commentaries that have followed the statement that the press conference, they've been unable to tell us what he did.
It's a complete breach of the public procurement law.
Which law? Public procurement law?
Procurement law 914.
And I'm telling you that the Central Tender Review Board or whatever board that they are talking about could look at ratification of these decisions. So if we don't have the board, should that person who had applied and the bank approved, would you want to say that the company should suffer because there's no board? Is that what you are telling us? Yesterday, one of them was on radio shouting about it, that the private sector, we said we wanted to empower the private sector, and certain actions, it's not in the right direction.
Mohammed.
So if you look at it and you feel that Magdan should suffer, are you also looking at empowering the private sector?
So let's look at if it was a company or a client, because those who get lended money, they borrow money from banks. Those who get lended money by the banks are customers. Any entity can apply for any credit facility in ADB. If it was any other entity beyond Magdan, and you didn't have perhaps any perceptions of any affiliation so-called to either government or the New Patriotic Party, that that entity would have been granted if they qualified, if they met specifications, because there are certain criteria by which you can access loans. And McDan is not a small company.
Yeah.
It's a big shipping firm in Ghana.
I know.
They have undertaken many loans in this country and beyond to undertake projects and transactions. If it was any other company beyond McDan, that would have been fair, right?
No. You see, Roland, I'm very happy that you took your time to give me and all our viewers a very practical illustration.
Yes.
You see, we have no problem whether it is McDan or any other company. And we have nothing against McDan as a company. In fact, as a company registered in Ghana, we should be interested in seeing such companies grow. We won't do what our colleagues are doing in government. When you apply for a loan facility, when an entity applies for a loan from a bank, it is the management of the bank that will do all the due diligence on that very company, submit a report to the governing board, especially that it's a listed company. It is not entirely state-owned. It's a listed company with a governing board.
With public shareholders.
But because government is the biggest shareholder, they constitute the board. Was it deliberate that they didn't even constitute the board? Now, when a company applies for a loan, management will do due diligence, submit a report to the governing board, who would either approve or disapprove of the credit facility. In this case, there was no governing board at all. What ADB then did was to write to the finance minister. So the finance minister had turned himself into the governing board.
Okay.
And that is not a good...
Within the regulation, and yesterday I was looking at some of the regulations after the press conference.
Yes, so...
As the biggest shareholder, because as the biggest individual shareholder, government makes serious managerial decisions.
Exactly.
We even make appointments of who manages the bank. Sometimes even to the point of composition of the board,
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. So in the absence of the board, the oversight responsibility of the functions of the board lies with the head of the Exchequer, and in our jurisdiction, the finance minister. Now, I don't know, perhaps, if McDan is declined a loan, it means that Roland's company would also have to be declined a loan.
Yeah.
Just because...
there was no board in place.
No, there's no board in place. But the law makes provision for that responsibility for which, or the decision that would have been taken by the board, that responsibility would have been lying with the head of the Exchequer or the finance minister in our republic. Hold on. Okay? And we've had scenarios, like the GNPC, for example, and in the last parliament, there have been concerns that had also been raised about the various SOEs that had gone to undertake transactions because of what your finance minister at the time termed smart borrowing, in which those loans would have been on the books of the various SOEs. So beyond the GNPC, we also had the GPHA, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. We have those ratifications by the finance minister before they came, and you were saying should have come through parliament, etc. The finance minister came to parliament and said because these were SOEs and they were operating on their own, you didn't need to come through parliament. Is it not the same situation in many ways? Not the same situation because there's a bank with some compositions, with public shares, etc. So once the finance minister has that responsibility, why would you fault the finance minister for taking that decision on behalf of the board?
Thank you so much, Roland. You see, the press conference had to, if you read the full text,
two scenarios. Or
there are two legs of the press conference.
Yes, please.
One leg has to do with good corporate governance.
I understand your point perfectly. I'm saying that if the view, I won't even say the perception, if the view of the minority is that the finance minister was abusing his powers in office.
Yes.
That's your view.
Yes.
But does that contravene the law based on how the finance minister, in the absence of a board for a public or part public entity like the ADB, has to play his role so that we have daily functionality of the public entity like ADB to function?
Well, I'm sure if you listen to me, you will understand what I'm trying to, my argument. First of all, this press conference stood on two legs.
You've made that point.
One leg had to do with good corporate governance.
So you're saying what he undertook was not good corporate governance practice?
You would not have a law with which you can pin him down on approving the loan.
But you're saying
but
that
the
good morals should...
Not just morals.
Or ethics.
Corporate good governance.
No, that's ethics. You're saying
Exactly,
ethics should
that's
tell
ethics.
him that you shouldn't be doing that.
What prevented him and the government to constitute the governing board for a listed company like
But
AGB?
it hasn't been constituted. Exactly. It doesn't mean the company should not function.
Exactly. So we are raising... No. Oh, but ADB, we are not saying they should lock the doors of ADB because
so precisely
there's
why
no
somebody
governing
needs
board.
to make sure before the board is constituted.
You see...
Are you saying that because there's no board,
we are raising
ADB should not function?
No, that's not what we are saying. We are raising questions of corporate good governance, that it would have been better for them to constitute the board, especially that government is a major shareholder.
Now there's no board. Let's talk in the absence. There's no board.
Now you approve a loan. You approve. The word use was approved, and now asking the bank to do due diligence. What due diligence again? When you have approved the loan already, that is not in tandem with good corporate governance. That's
the loan application, did it go to the finance minister or it went to ADB?
The loan approval.
No.
The application.
The application went to ADB.
Okay.
Okay.
And it was approved by ADB.
So I'm assuming the ADB management will forward
that loan request
to
the finance minister for approval.
And you are saying
in the letter approving the loan, the finance minister was asking the bank to do due diligence after he had approved the loan already.
No. He's giving if you give a go-ahead to an institution.
Yes.
And if the institution within the letter giving the go-ahead is told to undertake due diligence, if they undertake the due diligence and they encounter any wrongdoing or perhaps any breach that would not enable the institution to give or access to the loan to the facility, they could come back to the finance minister.
Roland, I don't agree.
Just because they didn't come back to the finance minister doesn't mean.
I don't agree with you on this note. No,
I'm giving you go ahead. Give the loan, but undertake due diligence before you give it.
No, he didn't say grant the loan contingent on due diligence. The loan is approved. No.
Is it?
Oh, take it easy. I'm sure you've had your turn.
Okay, my
the
time
man
is up.
says that the loan is approved. And
unfortunately, I only have a minute.
You see, Roland.
Let me have a minute.
The bottom line is that
you've taken all the time from me.
Because I'm
the bottom line is that they're looking at Magnan as an entity. Now,
is Magnan close to the MPP?
I don't know him.
Okay.
Now, I don't even know the company.
No, it's a company.
But yes,
Roland.
But you see, when Honorable Harun Edusu was speaking, the last part of the clip that you showed, he was mentioning chronism. That because the person said
that's what he said.
No, that's why because they found no fault. I said the minister breached anything from the narrative that we have in now.
No.
He did the things in tandem with the rules of the bank.
I have told you that
and I'm surprised
you want what has to do with good corporate governance. Who I have explained to you, even though you have some difficulty in appreciating it. The other one had to do with the breach of the procurement law.
Why would you say that I have some difficulty in appreciating your point?
My position.
I don't have any difficulty.
Well, go the comprehensive
I only ask questions based on some clarification.
Exactly.
I think that would have been unfair for you to say that.
Well, sorry if you got it out of...
Well, so based on that apology, I've had the industry.
No, this is not fair.
Mohammed Abdulaziz, Member of Parliament from Myong, and also the MPP's Secretary for Ashanti, and Sampine. Sampine, how are you? He's contesting
because all the discussion have been propagandist.
Propagandist.
This unfair.
Okay, that's also propagandist talk also. Well, we'll see how that goes.